Hey everyone, JP here from the Biz Dojo. Just want to let you know about Newsly. It's an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about some of the most trending topics, and then it reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the web is listenable. You can browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. So stop scrolling, just start listening. Download Newsly from newsly.me.
This episode is powered by Airdrie DQ Grill and Chill, owned and operated by local entrepreneurs. Check out one of their 3 Airdrie locations today and pick up a blizzard, ice cream cake, or dilly bar. The Biz Dojo is also brought to you by Beyond a Beaten Path. If you're on the lookout for a personalized gift, head to beyondabeatenpath.ca and get started on your custom creation. Beyond a Beaten Path. Personalize it, because everything else is boring.
So being in a band is hard. Trying to get shows, trying to book anything, especially for more than a pitcher of beer, because that's what people want to pay for a band. It's hard.
I know where you're going with this. You can't. You can't fool me.
So when I had a band, we've talked about this before for the listeners who have been with us for a little while. Back in season 2, we talked a little bit about this on the podium. Actually, when we were doing the podium
Retired segment that we had.
Yeah,
maybe we'll bring back one day. I think we will bring it back one day.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, in some form, we'll have to bring it back for sure. But we did talk about a person named Darren McGinty.
My boy.
Our boy Darren. So when I was playing music in a band, it was really, especially as a person in the band, it was really hard to get shows and to have good conversations. And then you show up and you meet the person and then they try and swindle you into something different than what you talked about, blah, blah, blah. So I just decided it would be way easier to have a manager who dealt with all of that stuff basically virtually, all through email, text, whatever. And
the man behind the band, as it were.
Exactly. Really helped make sure that, we had the right contracts in place, blah, 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 and could deal with any fallout. So we could just walk in and say, we were told we would make X number of dollars. You need to pay us X number of dollars. That's what the contract says. We're done. And
this is Darren's commission right here.
Yes. So Darren McGinty was me with a fake email address and a fake name. And he would do all of our bookings, and I would just go to the show as, the bassist or the guitarist, whatever band I happened to be in. And he made us some good money.
I remember the first time we talked about this, and I couldn't stop laughing enough to get myself under control to ask any questions.
All right. I'm open for questions today.
But I am curious. Did you ever have a situation where you, JP, were talking to someone who was trying to swindle or barter with you? And you're like, yeah, let me go talk to Darren and see what he has to say.
More than once. I literally have asked the guitar player. So in one of the bands, I asked the guitar player, we had a code. So I asked him if he could go grab my picks. I don't use a pick. So he knew if I was asking to go grab the picks, I wanted him to go and have his phone out and be ready to answer his phone. So I was like, yeah, I need to talk to Darren. And I would step away and I would just pick up my phone and I would dial, and he would be like outside the venue and he would answer. And then he would be the one to talk over the phone to whoever we were having a problem with. And he would know the contract because I shared the contract. Like everyone in the band knew what the contracts were. But yeah, he would manage them on the side.
Wow.
Yes, we worked out all of the scenarios.
So there's something I didn't know about you. So you are of the Cliff Burton School of Bass versus the Jason Newsted. Is that how that goes? The finger picking versus the pick.
I'm a cross between finger and slap.
Slapping the bass.
Slapping the bass. Yes.
There you have it, folks.
I also don't like. People are going to think I'm crazy here, but I actually don't like using a pick for guitar.
No. How come?
I think it's because I grew up on bass. So my dad was in a band when I was not born yet, like 20, 30 years before I was born.
So pre-JP.
Yes. Pre-JP, my dad was in a band, and one that actually won a bunch of awards and could have gone somewhere, but just couldn't afford really good recording equipment. So never won any. They were actually, in a contest with the Guess Who, and they came second. So I don't even know if I would exist had they won that contest, because who knows where in the world they would have ended up. But yeah, I picked up the bass because of my dad. He had this really old bass that weighs 1,000 pounds, and I just decided I wanted to learn how to play it. He also had a guitar, but it wasn't out and on display, and the bass was. So taught myself how to play bass, played bass through high school in jazz band and everything, and got into some rock bands and fell into the circle of bassists at my high school, and then again in college, where I met a bunch of really cool people and did some touring. And yeah,
it was awesome. I feel like I'm learning all kinds of things about you that I did
and
not
Darren
know. And Darren is I think a reoccurring character in our world from here on out. But why are we talking about all this, JP?
We are talking about this because this week we had an opportunity to talk to a real Darren, a real person who's involved in entertainment management, not just bands, but entertainment management. So Kristin Lee. And that was a great conversation about everything, and not just stories from the road, which you would expect in those sort of situations. It was a lot about starting her business, and some of the decisions she made to do certain things with her business that we won't dive too far into and give away.
Yeah, no, I think just a super inspiring person is what I take away from it. She worked with some big firms, decided to go off and do it on her own, had a lot of people second guessing and doubting her, and based on everything I can see, she's doing some pretty cool stuff. When you can open 3 locations across the U.S.
and opening a headquarters in Nashville, like if you're doing those sorts of things, if you're in LA and Nashville alone, and you're in the music industry or entertainment industry anywhere, you're doing something right.
Yeah. And just her overall vibe, I dig it. And I think a lot of the things that she stands for in terms of, being an advocate for equal pay for women and creating space for women to not only, have good jobs, but to be promoted and be at the front of this industry and other industries. To me, she puts her money where her mouth is, based on what she's actually doing in the world on a day-to-day basis, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see someone who has a mindset about not just the business they want to be in, but how they want to run that business. Like anyone can go and start a business. It's something completely different when you have a vision about how your business can actually impact the world. And she talks a lot about being the change that you want to see in the world. And she talks about making, kind of small changes, and many small changes will add up. And like you said, she's putting her money where her mouth is. Like she's making those changes, and she came into the game thinking about those things.
So with that, a thought to ponder in your own life is, what's one thing that you could do to empower others or give someone else a voice? Welcome to the Biz Dojo with Seth and JP. This week, we are joined by Kristin Lee. Welcome to the dojo.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks so much for joining us today. And I guess reading up and listening to a couple pods you've been on, it's like you took one of the more traditional, I'm going to call it boring jobs in the world, accountant, and you've mashed it with the entertainment industry. Does that about sort of capture the spirit of what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I think, at the heart of it all, us business managers are mostly accountants, but there are business managers who have other backgrounds, maybe lawyers or financial planners too. But I would say a large majority of us fall in that accountant area.
And you had a bit of an interesting journey there. So as I understand it, your parents were accountants, and once you kind of got finished with the music scene, it was just sort of a natural path for you to head down that road?
Yeah, I went back to school for accounting, and, I went into general public accounting to start, and I thought maybe I'd work with family, but I just found it to be really boring. I was good at it, but, it just wasn't really exciting me. And when I found out that entertainers and musicians and people still needed accountants too, and I worked with this woman who helped me get my first job, I was very delighted to find out that I could kind of mold those worlds together. And I've been doing it ever since.
And you were in entertainment from a very young age, as I understand it. You kind of got yourself involved. How much did that play into your desire to find something within the entertainment industry?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, I've been going to shows for as long as I can remember and playing in bands and kind of running around in, the underground music scene for a lot of my life. And, it's something that kind of really sits in your core when you're part of one of those DIY scenes. And it was not something that I was willing to shed from my life. So it still to this day plays into everything I do. I think it's just part of who I am.
I feel like people don't realize that 99% of the music scene is underground and they know nothing about it. And they only see the 1% that make it onto radio or into their ears through podcasts and those sorts of things. And it's a totally separate world from the world they live in. Yeah.
I mean, I bet most people have never heard of any of the bands that I was going to see or hanging out with when I was a teenager. A lot of them aren't around anymore.
Yeah, it's par for the course of the music industry, right?
Yeah. I mean, it can't all be the Rolling Stones.
Just kind of picking up on something there, Kristin. Your time in we'll call it the underbelly of the music scene. We talk a lot about transferable skills. So we've had, professional athletes and musicians who've been on the show before, and we've then gone on to have, pretty careers. Just wondering, is there one or two skills you picked up in that scene that have actually helped you, or not actually, but played a role in your success in business?
Yeah. If you have never experienced a DIY show or festival or something that these kids put together, or the zines that they put together, I mean, this is all, born of a passion and a love for music. And, they will work their tails off and figure everything out to make this happen and put this show together and make it work. And I think a lot of that mentality has transferred over with me, and it's definitely part of the firm. It's a very collaborative effort, all of the work that we do, and everyone kind of helps everyone, and we play into different skill sets. We're like, okay, if you're good at A and you're good at B, then together we can get this one project done and see it through. And I think a lot of that does come from growing up in that scene. It was like I would go to shows and take photos of my friends' bands. And then I worked at a camera store in high school and college, and I'd run down there and develop pictures and then give them to them so they could use them for their promos or put them in zines or whatever. And we kind of all did this, not for money, but for the love of, seeing this, whatever project we were doing through, and, just for our love of music.
Zines.
I know, right?
It's been a while since I've been involved in that music scene and being involved in zines, and
yeah, me too.
The amount of work that goes into those is incredible, and it's all just passion.
Yeah.
There's nobody's making money on zines.
No, it's pure love. It's just being so obsessed with something that you want to talk about it and share it with 10 other people that are also passionate about the same thing.
So I maybe just following that thread, then KLBM is the name of your firm, and maybe just give us a bit of a taste of how that came to be and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, I worked at some really big firms at the start of my career. I worked for some incredible partners at all of those firms, and I picked up, all of the good parts along the way and tried to remember not to do the bad ones. And, I think time and time again, as, a lot of marginalized people, I'd say, face the ceiling that you would constantly hit. So, I know so many women who are passed over for positions, people of color, LGBTQ, that just don't sit at the big table at a lot of these firms. And I think I just kind of capped out over and over and over again. So I'd jump and go somewhere else and go somewhere else. And then I realized that if I wanted to do things and have the vision that I saw for my future and my firm, I was really going to have to do it myself and take it upon myself and just run with it. So I did. I just started it up right in my living room and ran with it. Thank God all my clients came.
If you reflect on that for a moment, and reflecting on our journey, it's actually the 1 year anniversary today of our podcast. So 1 year ago today.
Nice.
Yeah, it's exciting. So one of the things I was reflecting on this morning was how much taking that step into the unknown, like there's all kinds of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and worrying about things that are totally out of your control. But once you make that step, all these things you never even knew were there. I'm just curious, like that moment in your living room when you're like, okay, I'm doing this. What was that like? What was going through your head?
The weeks and maybe even months leading up to it were the fearful ones, right? I am an overthinker, as a lot of us are. And I played out every worst case scenario that you could think of, everything that could go wrong, and lamented over all kinds of things. Was I going to have enough cash flow? How was I going to hire? Where was I going to actually put an office? And how was I going to grow? And I realized just sitting there and thinking about all of that stuff and not taking action was just causing me to spiral. And as soon as I just ripped the Band-Aid off and decided, hey, where I was at the time wasn't working anymore, and I needed to, make a hard left and just go do this, that first step, the action of doing, kind of removes all that fear. And maybe it's still there somewhere in the back of your mind, but then you're so busy having to do all of these things to get a business off the ground, you don't really have time to be scared anymore. It's kind of just, you got to go.
Yeah. It's amazing how quick you can act when you've got that fire underneath you.
Yeah. It's, for me, I've always found that ahead of making a decision, I get really anxious and I kind of run around and play out all the different ways that it could go. And as soon as I make a decision, I'm really good at just taking action and getting stuff done. So, I've tried over the last however many years to make those decisions more quickly, albeit still making sure they're informed and educated and, not just kind of wild. But, I think the less that we spin our wheels and the more just action that we take, I think the better we are.
I think a lot of people have that challenge. And when I say a lot of people, I mean specifically my wife, very much overthinks everything. And I'm very much the opposite. So I think we play off each other quite well. But there's probably a lot of listeners who have had the same challenge in the past. Are there any tools or tricks that you've learned to kind of light that fire under yourself and get moving rather than trying to plan out every scenario?
Well, the longer that you spend thinking about something and not doing something, you're just losing time. And I think more often than not, I've gone into a situation and been like, oh, this wasn't like even a fraction as bad as I made it up to be in my head. And then you realize I've just spent all this time thinking about something that didn't happen or didn't go wrong. And it's actually great. So, every minute that goes by, you don't get it back. And so I think, making sure that I kind of limit my thought process as much as I can, it has really helped me. I get more done now.
Yeah. And I think just reflecting back, I mentioned I was listening to a pod you were on yesterday while I was at the gym and I was running around the track. And I remember you said something around, you thought through a lot of worst case scenarios and then you got hit with one really, which was COVID, but you made it through. So like as worst case scenario as that was, you had the tools at your disposal and the ability to kind of work through it. I guess, what did you learn from that experience? Like, even if a worst case scenario does come true, you've got the tools to manage it. Was there anything else that kind of came through for you?
Yeah. I think I've said this a dozen times and I probably said that on the podcast you're listening to, but I do try to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And we do see a lot of repeat scenarios, I would say, in my line of work, and they might not be identical, but similar things kind of happen in the world of entertainment, and there's certain ways that things could play out. So I think over time and just having that experience and going through those motions, I kind of know the ABC to set up for a certain scenario that might happen if it's contracted one way, but things could fall apart in three different directions, then we'll try to loosely plan for those three, but also know that you have to be a bit malleable and you have to be able to kind of turn on a dime and just act accordingly to what the situation is. And I think a lot of us faced that over COVID. We just had to get really creative and flexible and deal with the constant moving target and the ever-changing challenges, because nothing was certain and we didn't know what was going on a lot of the times. It was every week, everything was changing.
In your line of work, being business manager for entertainment, did things get busier or less busy when COVID? Like, did you have more to manage because there was just like crazy contracts and things canceling and coming up, or was it like, okay, nobody's doing anything now, so we're going to sit back?
Yeah, no, it was actually, I think I was busier than I've ever been in a way that was new to me, because we were changing plans pretty much week by week, updating cash flows constantly, having constant conversations of, okay, now we're canceling things out further and further and further. At the beginning, it was just canceling short-term things, but then it became a very long-term cancellation of everything. And we stopped rescheduling things and just canceled things. And so then it's like, okay, well, what happens if none of this comes back or everything goes away? Then we have to make entirely new plans. And I think I spent more time in, Zoom meetings and on the phone than I had in my entire career, just constantly talking about what we're going to do next. And it was just a complete play by play by play, It was, it was pretty interesting, but also a little bit inspiring to see how people were able to kind of roll with it or, change up their workflow to keep it together. So, took the good with the bad.
How did you find support in the virtual environment? Getting on Zoom and coaching, supporting the people at your firm, hiring people, like what was all that like for you?
We do a weekly Zoom with our entire staff. Everybody gets on and, we all just say hi, do a loose update with whatever's going on with the firm or what kind of pressing deadlines are coming up that week or in the next couple of weeks, just to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page. And then, see if anybody has anything fun to share with the group and try to keep spirits up and stay connected, obviously. But yeah, that's exhausting. I do believe in being with people in a room. It's just a different energy to be next to somebody as opposed to seeing them on the screen.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can with what we've got given the situation, but I don't think that this is a permanent solution. I definitely don't think it's a replacement for in-person interaction, but we did the best that we can. We communicate on email and Slack every day, all day long. So we stay pretty thick. Yeah.
Do you find that more things have been enabled as a result? This podcast and our conversation right now, if we're honest about it, might not have happened a year ago or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
Seth and I aren't making enough money on podcasts to fly all of our guests out to have like we've had some guests from Belgium. Like we don't have those kind of funds, so we couldn't do that. But do you find that it's actually made a lot of change in your business for the positive, and you're taking things away from it that are really going to help you in the future?
I think that we'll see a little bit less travel and running around. I know the entertainment industry is kind of famous for us all jet setting around and going to events and shows and stuff. And I think, while those things still happen, I think the entourage that it usually entails, and I know my personal travel is definitely going to cut back. I found that, just spending more time in the office at my desk has been really nice. It's nice to have a more condensed day, I guess, as opposed to running in and out of the office for meetings, people dropping by constantly, all that stuff that kind of interrupts the workflow, because I am working with numbers a lot of the day and I need to be focused. So I'm going to try and maintain that. as long as I can.
Yeah, I'm not missing the commute for the time, but I'm
Right.
very much missing the commute for like being able to spend some time inside my own head and think through some things and have that kind of decompression between home and work, and then more importantly between work and home. I know you've talked a fair bit about self-care. So how has your self-care changed over the course of COVID?
It's definitely something that I build into my schedule now, where I feel like I used to just kind of do that stuff when I had time. Now I block the time out on my schedule, on my calendar. I've got my workouts are blocked out. I tell my assistant, my staff, I have this going on and I can't be interrupted. I just need to do this. And I think it's made me more effective and stronger because I just have the ability to focus on work when I'm at work and really give myself that time. I definitely being at home more, obviously eating better and cooking healthier things instead of going out. I mean, I did my fair share of, ordering in as everybody did over the pandemic, but I did try and focus on making more fun things, kind of challenging myself to cook new things and healthier things, more colorful foods. And I think that really benefited me, actually. It was nice to get creative making things that I'd never made before, kind of a new challenge for myself.
Is there a dish that's made it into your regular rotation as a result?
Not a regular rotation, I'd say, but I've definitely just done some really off the wall things. I've gotten really good at like cleaning out the fridge and making like a fun meal out of whatever's left. I mean, I'll get that down to the last bit. It's like Chopped.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like an episode of Chopped. You're like, okay, I've got a jar of mayo and I've got some pickles and what am I going to make?
Yeah, today it was like tater tots and bell peppers, kale and eggs.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Breakfast. Yeah, I had a little breakfast hash.
Nice.
That was when did we talk about that idea, JP, of having an app that would tell you all the stuff that was about to expire in your fridge and give you a recipe?
We talked about it like a week ago because I was talking about how
that would do well.
I actually write down a list now because I was so bad at food before. I write down a list of all the expiry dates when I get home, and I know that I need to eat the food by that date. So it actually ends up making my meal plan for me because I never eat the food early. I always just eat it. I'm like, okay,
right.
My broccoli is going to expire on Tuesday, and so is my chicken. Looks like I'm having chicken and broccoli. Yes, if we had that app, Kristin would be one of our first users of that app.
I would. You know what you should do? Actually, I write when I open. So I make smoothies in the morning, like after I work out, and I use coconut milk, and I'll write the day that I opened it on there, so I remember.
I've started doing that with like broth, like the chicken and beef broth. I always write the date on top because inevitably I have like 4 or 5 on the go in the fridge, and I turn to my wife and I'm like, when did we open these? And she's like, I don't remember when we ate what. Like, who knows?
Oh, God.
And then they all get thrown out. So we started writing the date on top.
That's so smart.
Building on that sort of self-care idea a little bit, Kristin, you and I are kindred spirits when it comes to getting up early. What do you find about that 5 a.m. wake up that sets your day up for success?
It's so nice to have quiet time before everything goes crazy during the day. My days are pretty busy, and stuff can happen throughout my day that I didn't see coming. So you can get curveballs more often than not. And so having a few hours to myself in the morning to just have coffee, and I do the New York Times crossword puzzle. And like this morning, I talked to one of my friends who was also up at 5 a.m. for some reason for a little bit, and we had a little chat, and traded some new tunes that we were both listening to, and it was just kind of nice to have that. And then the sun came up, and I went to the gym, and then by the time I get back and I get ready to my desk, I'm pretty zenned out and ready to go. And I definitely find that I'm more focused at that point because I've kind of gotten all my scrolling and phone things out of the way.
I know that
I'm all energized for my workout. Yeah.
Totally. Like I had a day the other week where I woke up at like 6 and I was like, my whole morning was just thrown off, that missing that hour to just kind of decompress and do my thing.
Yeah. If I oversleep, I definitely feel like I lost half a day somehow, or I just have to sacrifice doing me things, which I don't want to do either. and that makes me kind of grumpy.
JP is the opposite of us, though. He's the one that he'll be up editing the podcast till 4 a.m. and then hand the baton to me, and I'll do all the posting.
We've had conversations about how Seth and I could easily start a 7-Eleven and just run it on our own, and it would be open 24/7. Just hand it off because of our sleeping schedules. But I find the same thing. Like my evening is when I get my quiet time. So rather than, it's a good like decompression before I sit down and go to bed and whatnot. But I do it for the same reason. It's a little different too. I've got a 2-year-old, so it's a little different with a 2-year-old. When awake. Yeah. When I'm waking up at 6 a.m., it's because someone's screaming. So there is no like decompression time in the morning. You go from fast asleep to wide awake. So
maybe just pivoting a little bit, Kristin, one of the things you're super passionate about is equality, women in the workplace, equal pay, things of that nature. And I know you're a big advocate. And maybe tell us a little bit about what you've done with your business to sort of lead the way on that front.
Yeah, this is a good one. I felt that in my career, I wasn't taken as seriously because I was a young woman. And though I think it was recognized that I was talented, I don't think that was the issue. But I'm different. I was young, probably a little overeager, and I think some of that ruffled feathers. But I know that there were young men kind of in my class that would definitely get jobs that I felt entitled to over me, and I don't think there was as much opportunity for me ever as there should have been as my male counterparts. And I think it's even worse for people of color, especially women of color, probably even worse for the LGBTQ community. And, when I started my firm, something that's always stuck in the back of my mind was, the opportunities that I could create. Like, what am I able to give back by doing this? I set up this company, and not only to service my clients, but also to serve a community and to provide for other people. And so I kind of try to live by that, be the change you want to see in the world. And so largely we employ women. I have one male employee right now, and he's great. Everybody's great. And honestly, the women that I've hired, we have had male applicants. They were just better. They interviewed better. They had the right backgrounds. They had the right energy. They felt like they fit into the culture that I was looking for. And, maybe there's something to be said about, people gravitating toward but oftentimes I'd be interviewing these women and hear their stories and their backgrounds and be really inspired by it and want them to be a part of what I'm doing. And, I would say it's unfortunate that a lot of the firms that I've worked for didn't operate that way and are still trying to figure out how to implement more equality into the firm, because they're missing out on so much talent. They're missing out on unique voices. They're missing out on making themselves, as a collective better, because if you continue to perpetuate this monotonous voice and in this vision of your company, then you're not being progressive, you're not being innovative, you're not challenging the status quo, and you're not doing anything new and exciting. And in fact, you're really limiting where you could go by leaving out those voices and leaving those people off the table. So it's something that's really important to me to keep in mind when we're interviewing and hiring, and we've got a great variety of human beings that work for us now. It's awesome.
As you've created the culture, do you find that more and more women are applying?
Yeah, I lead with our advertising on any job postings that it's a women-led firm, and that we're equal pay advocates. How
do you find the greater business environment in terms of that equal pay conversation? I know it's something that's come up in sports quite a bit of late. And, to me, it makes, a lot of sense. If you're a professional basketball player in the WNBA versus the NBA, like why can't there be equal pay? Why does it, like, it doesn't make sense that they basically have to have a second job to survive. And, the 16th person on the bench of an NBA team is, they're not working at Arby's part-time to pay their way. But what do you find you come across in sort of the business world when it comes to that conversation?
I have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense to me that the same job doesn't pay the same for men and women. We make our pay standard based on the position and experience, and that's it. And I probably have women who are paid more than men in my industry at my firm, actually, because that's what they deserve, because they're really good at their jobs and they hold down their position. It's just, I couldn't even tell you. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me that still in this day and age that we're having this conversation. It should be obsolete at this point. And I think employers have an obligation to every single person that walks through that door to pay them based on their experience and their position. And that's it.
Do you find that permeates into the clients that you have as well? Like, do you find that men are often paid more even in the entertainment clients that you have?
They are. Yes, they are. We see it because we see all the contracts. But again, most of my client roster, I'd say probably close to 70%, maybe more now, are female artists, people of color, LGBTQ. And it's another thing that's just important to me is amplifying those voices and supporting those careers, because those people need to be successful and heard and empowered just as much, if not more so, than the same old thing that's been going on for hundreds of years. So we can do whatever we can to kind of push this along. It's just still really slow going, and it's not easy.
Well, I think it's important too, and I think this has come up a lot recently, but seeing people that you can connect with or recognize as a part of your community coming up as a younger person, seeing a Black president, seeing a woman in power, those sorts of things are important. With that in mind, like, what else do you think can be done other than just, the conversations that are happening? Like, what can Seth and I do, for example? Like, we try to give a space here, obviously, to allow people to speak and to advance the messaging and hopefully have an impact. But like, what else can we do?
I believe in tiny changes, right? We all have our little microcosm that we live in and that we operate in. And so it's like, what is available? What opportunities can you provide? You guys can give space and a voice to people to tell their stories. And even if that's one story a week, that's still really powerful. I think all employers have the opportunity to look at who they hire and actively think about their diversity hiring. I think programmers for television shows, for radio, they can actively look at what they're playing, who they're having on, and say, we want to make this more diverse. We want to show every young person out there that there's somebody that, looks just like them and has a similar story, can also make it if they want to. And it's not there. The opportunities are often not there, in certain communities. I was listening to another podcast that Tiffany Haddish was on. She was talking about, if you go into lower income neighborhoods, the banks aren't there, the grocery stores aren't there. They don't have, these basic things that if you go into more affluent neighborhoods have readily available on every corner. Instead, you have liquor stores. You have things that are, not supplying people with the basic needs that they should get to just, have a better quality of life. So, you've got to go into those micro communities and start making those changes, block by block. And that could be as easy as having a conversation with your friends and family and see what they can do, even on a very small granular level. I think everybody has an opportunity somewhere to make a tiny change.
I think about, I've had a lot of really strong women in my life, grandmothers, my mom. I've got 3 sisters, and then my daughter. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she inspires me literally every day. And I think a lot about what kind of world is she going to grow up in? And because I feel like she could do anything. She could be a CEO. She could be
She can.
any damn thing. Like, she literally taught herself how to swim at 4 years old with like no help. Like, she can do anything. And what can I do as a leader of this house or in this community or, you know, in anything that I work on to help create that world for her so there are no barriers? And one of the things I've been thinking about particularly a lot lately is around language. And, you know, you could talk about job postings as one thing. Like, how do you make a job posting? How do you put the right language in it so that a woman or LGBTQ or whatever want to apply?
Yeah, again, that's in messaging. That's putting it out there, black and white. I do. I put it in all of my job postings because I want everybody that comes across that to know what we stand for as a company. And that probably does generate more diverse applicants on my end. It probably generates more female applicants on my end. And that's totally fine with me because that's what I'm looking for. So I think being ultra transparent and encouraging and empowering is crucial.
Seth talks about his daughter a lot. He's constantly inspired by her. He's just calls me randomly sometimes. It's like, JP, like, you won't believe what my daughter did today.
That's so cool.
It's like the cutest thing ever. I love it.
There's something really special about girl dads. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually, my first boss in business management, I'm still friends with his daughter. He's a girl dad. He has 2 daughters and they're both incredible. And one of them's a really good friend of mine. And he just has a way, you know, of navigating women better than you know, those who don't have daughters. I always remember that about him. Like, his softness. He's still total badass boss, but he has a softness.
He understands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I grew up, so I have an older sister, and she's 10 years older than me. So she used to just whip me into shape of everything. And she's an English major, so anything I ever submitted in school was automatically not good enough. But she's the reason I used to live in Ontario, just south of Toronto. She's actually the reason I moved across the country. So I moved across the country and became a manny for her kids. And like the change I saw even in myself over the course of pre being a manny to post being a manny was pretty incredible. Like, I found that I just understood things better. I started to eliminate some of my own biases and things that they were unconscious biases. I had no idea they existed, but they were clearly there and I needed to deal with them. So,
yeah, I mean, these are things that are ingrained into us because they've been societally approved for decades, right? And it's not really thought about. Like, change requires active thought. It requires paying close attention to your words and your actions and why you're doing something, as opposed to just doing something because that's how it's always been done.
Is it time for a coffee break yet?
I think it is time for a coffee break. Are you going to drink some Biz Dojo brand coffee during our coffee break?
I'm absolutely going to drink some Biz Dojo brand coffee on this coffee break.
Which Biz Dojo brand coffee are you going to drink during this Biz Dojo brand coffee break?
Personally, I like the Dojo Dark Roast Biz Dojo brand coffee on my coffee break.
My preference is the Master's Medium Roast on my Biz Dojo brand coffee breaks.
How much Master's Medium or Dojo Dark Roast Biz Dojo coffee could JP drink?
Oh, JP could drink an endless amount of Biz Dojo brand coffee on a Biz Dojo branded coffee break, whether it was the Master's Medium or the Dojo Dark Roast. But see, the thing is that our listeners can also enjoy Biz Dojo branded coffee during a Biz Dojo branded coffee break. They just need to visit our website or Amazon or send us a DM.
Hi there, I'm JD Lewis. I think I still host the morning show from 5 until 10 a.m. on CJ92, unless they fired me, in which case this is all invalid, but you're listening to the Biz Dojo podcast.
Maybe a good opportunity then to move into this week's question from Mama Seth. So we do a weekly question from my mom this season. And so her question is, Kristin, as I'm a fellow female CEO in a primarily male industry, and I find that I often have men mansplaining to me or talking to my husband instead of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you have found this in your industry and what you do to deal with it and how you keep your cool, because I'm really struggling with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We are not alone in that one. It happens all the time. I feel confident now that the clients I have and the teams that I work with, they respect me, and I don't see as much of that anymore. But, it's definitely still there in the industry. And there are people who, maybe I'm new to meeting, or that, haven't spent a lot of time with, that don't have the right social graces in dealing with me. I recently spoke on a Clubhouse panel, and I was the only person on there with financial background. And there were some other people on there that were managers and lawyers and marketing teams and stuff. Somebody asked a question relating back to finances and accounting, and two men who are not in the finance world spoke over me to answer this woman's question. And it was just appalling, but luckily it was so funny. The woman that asked the question came right back and said, well, I was asking Kristin, the financial expert, that question. So I'd like to hear what she has to say. So, it's, at least us women, we have each other's backs, but oftentimes I'll let them finish speaking and say, thank you for your input, but I wasn't done saying what I needed to say. Or sometimes you just have to be harsher. And I know that there's a lot of, oh, well, she's crazy or she's a bitch. And you know what? Fine, if that's what they have to think about me. But I've got to do what I've got to do to say what I need to say, to get done what I need to get done. And I can't be trampled on. And so sometimes I have to stand up for myself and be a little bit more hardcore than I'd like to be. But I do try to focus on my good relationships and those that have a very solid foundation of mutual respect, and work with a lot of those people on those teams. Because if I have to talk to you every day, we better like each other,
It's funny. You mentioned the language there about being called a bitch or whatever. And Seth was talking about it earlier. And I think in a lot of those situations, a male would have been called assertive or confident or any number of positive phrases. So like, I'm just going back to it because I'm just thinking about just how important the language that we choose to use, even in those, I'll say a little bit more trying situations, can be, because like you're not being a bitch. You are being confident and providing your input as the expert in that field. Like to me, there's no other way to look at it. But how do I get through to people who are maybe not in the same mindset that I have? Because I feel like I'm pretty open.
People need to shed their old mindset about how women are supposed to operate, where we used to be thought of as, sweet and soft and docile, and to not be assertive, to only speak when spoken to. And that doesn't work anymore, because that's not how we are. We're actually, wildly passionate, intelligent, vocal human beings, and oftentimes far more articulate and calculated than our male counterparts. So again, we deserve the mutual respect of our male counterparts, and also just that opportunity to have our voice be heard. We shouldn't have to keep making our own lane. We shouldn't have to keep building our own table. We should start moving toward how do we even this playing field.
As a now middle-aged, I guess, white male, I know that I'm probably the one who needs to make the changes, because me and my counterparts in this specific group are the ones who are creating the challenge. And so I always want to make the space, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that I may still have some biases, and I may have some other things that come up from time to time, and I don't want to say the wrong word at the wrong time or imply the wrong thing. Like that is a constant thing that's going on in my head that, I need to overcome for myself, obviously, but it is a challenge.
Yeah. I think that we, in this time of change is hard. Growth is hard. I think we need to give each other more grace for the attempt, of trying to understand, trying to be better. Not everybody's going to get it right all the time. definitely probably not the first time, maybe not even the 10th time, but the act of trying should go pretty far. But the thing is that we have to keep trying, and we have to keep listening, and we have to keep wanting to be better. And it's just going to continue on. It's not something that you can just do really quick and then set it aside. It's something that has to go on and on and on and on, and probably multiple facets of your world, at home, at the grocery store, at work. I'm sure there are a lot of situations where maybe, you've got to stop and think of what the best course of action is or the best thing to say is. And I think it's okay to stumble a bit, as you're trying to figure that out. At least you're trying, at least you're thinking about it.
And it's a couple thousands of years of oppression, really, that we're trying to overcome. And it's really been the last, 10, 15 years where we've started to push.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be an overnight success.
Of course not, but I don't like the idea of the angry feminist either. That's like, men are bad. Like, screw you, you didn't get that right. That doesn't work, because then that stalls the conversation. And then people are turned off the other direction. Like, oh, I was trying, sorry, and then people shy away from wanting to continue trying. So we do need to hold space for one another while we're going through this awkward phase of changing and new developments and, new ways to even just speak to each other.
Well, this has been a very inspiring conversation, Kristin. Lots for everyone to kind of take away and think about. And I guess maybe on the way out of here, a couple more questions. In terms of KLBM, what's on the horizon? I know you guys have 3 offices across the U.S. now. What do you kind of see ahead in 2022?
Well, our national office is brand new, so it's actually been being built out and having desks and things delivered as of this week even. So my focus really is kind of focusing on that office and building out. It's a big space, and there's a lot of opportunity for us here. We've had a lot of exciting developments and new clients come to us since we've showed up in Nashville, and really hoping to kind of build on that, because it's kind of a new world for me coming from the West Coast. I've mostly spent, my career on the West Coast, and I've done a lot of work in London as well. And I think now coming here to Tennessee, kind of like a whole new world. And I'm hoping that we can, inspire some change in the industry and be, something different for the clientele here than what they've had before. And hopefully it's something that they're interested in. But, I think in my industry, there's someone for everyone, and I think we're kind of new on the block. So I think it'll be exciting to see what happens next and who we come across. But we're going to have a big 2022, and you'll see it.
I've heard a lot of great things about Nashville in particular. I worked in radio for 10 years. I've been in bands, and I know we talked earlier about not having success in bands, but I have had a little bit of success and done some a little bit of touring. So I have a lot of friends in the industry, and they've all kind of been to Nashville, and every single person that's been there is like, it's different. There is something wildly different about everything that happens in Nashville.
I like it. It's a whole new energy, and it's a whole new kind of way of working the industry. But the thing that I really like about Nashville is everybody here comes to work, and you've got to pay your dues to make it in this town. And I have a lot of respect for that. So I'm looking forward to spending more time here and kind of digging in.
Amazing. Well, we look forward to what's to come, and we'll definitely be paying attention. And I guess last question, what are you doing for self-development right now? How are you feeding your mind?
I am obsessed with Abraham Hicks. So they have a daily podcast, little nugget thing. It's like, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of wisdom. I try and get one of those in every day. Just really get me going. And they put you in this right headspace of thinking that you're about to have a great day and refocusing. The word elite keeps coming across my mind, across my desk. For some reason, I'm really hyper focused on that word and kind of implementing that into my day and my work ethic, and hopefully into my team. And I'm just trying to be elite.
dig it. I dig it. The funny thing, last week I actually started doing one of those daily 3-minute podcasts about mindset, and it's almost become like a verbal journal that I can do every morning, and it's been so much fun to do.
Yeah, it really takes your thoughts and puts them on a different track, and that changes your day so much. It's awesome. We love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kristin, for coming in today. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, this is fun. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Have you ever thought about how to unlock your own potential and what a coach could do for you? Well, reach out anytime. We'd love to set up a free discovery session with you to see if coaching's right for you and if we're the right coaches. Just send an email, coaching@thebizdojo.com.